Hey guys, I'm Evan and this is Magnolias and Sunlight, and today is day 26 of DIY or Die, my series where we make a Halloween inspired DIY project every day in the month of October, and we are on the final week of projects. So a few weeks ago, or maybe even just last week, they're honestly all running together, we made a 3-tiered pumpkin mouse house, and it was so adorable and so cute. And today we're going to do something kind of similar, but we're going to make it celestial. So I have 3 of these little craft pumpkins, and these ones I did pick up at the craft store. I couldn't find 3 matching ones at the thrift store, and what I really wanted was one of the really tall white pumpkins, just a single one, and I just could not spend $19 on one of those. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I looked at the thrift store so many times, and the only ones I found had already been crafted in a way that I couldn't take it off. I thought about it. I thought about stripping one, and then I just was like, you don't have time for that. So what we're gonna do, we are going to take our 3 pumpkins. We're gonna use our hot knife tool, the same one we used in that video, and we will take the top off of this one, the bottom and the top off of this one, and then we'll just take the bottom out of this one, and they will stack nicely on one another. We're going to end up putting them on this beautiful iridescent glass pedestal that I found at the thrift store. It fits perfectly on there. We can light them with a pillar candle, something warm, a nice warm glow. And to make them celestial, I have printed out all of the horoscope constellations. I didn't know where to stop with constellations. I looked at a lot of constellation maps. I tried to figure out like where on the pumpkin it would make most sense for them to be placed. And I just decided to go with the horoscope ones because there's 12, we have 3 pumpkins, and that way I can do 4 on each pumpkin. So we're gonna cut these out and then place them on our pumpkins and then use our power drill, handy dandy power drill, and drill holes in the shapes of these guys. Of course, stars are different sizes. As you can see here, there's different size stars in the constellations, and that has meaning. So we are going to drill holes that are in accordance to the size of these, and then fill some of them, not all of them, with we have some clear faceted beads in here. I have a whole set actually in this box. This was an estate sale find from a woman who used to make beaded Christmas ornaments, and they were getting rid of like boxes and boxes and boxes of beads. So we're gonna use all of these clear ones down here in varying sizes. We will glue them into those little holes, and then you'll get like this really cool, hopefully kaleidoscope effect when we turn our pumpkin on. And for the really big ones, I also hit up the thrift store, and I had to buy a $2 vase to get the stuff that was inside the vase. But we have some little tiny vase filler marbles that I thought could be the really big stars, and then hopefully that will also cast a really cool light. We're gonna have to play with the light that we use on the inside to make sure that we get the effect that we're looking for. But step 1 is to go ahead and start cutting our pumpkins. So I'm gonna take you guys outside and we will turn on that hot tool. All right, friends, well, that backfired a little bit because my hot tool not heating up. It still cuts because it's still an X-Acto knife, but that means we are just going to go ahead and move on to the box cutter, because when one tool doesn't work, we just move on. So straight into the pumpkin. Okay, we have our pumpkins all cut. This is the middle again, this is the top, and this is the bottom. Okay, bottom, middle, top, like that. Yep, okay. So now we're gonna start with our constellations. And I kind of just want to, I know that 4 will fit all the way around. And then I also should grab some tape, because I'm just gonna kind of tape them on here. And then my thought was I can use my X-Acto knife, not on the pumpkin, but down here, and kind of cut out little like areas, and then we can label it with a Sharpie, big, medium, small, BMS, or large M, LMS, that makes more sense, large, medium, small, and then we'll know which holes as we go to use our drill on, because I'm gonna use 3 different drill bits. One that will fit the marble, one that will fit maybe not this exact bead, but you'll get the point, this size bead, and then the little one is just gonna be a hole, and then that will let the light shine through. And then at the end, if we still feel like we need more, we'll go back with this really teeny tiny drill bit, and we can just drill a bunch of little holes to really get that galaxy look. All right, so I've cut all our shapes out. We've cut all our constellations out, and now I'm just gonna go through with my X-Acto knife on a piece of scrap cardboard and kind of cut out, I'm even just gonna like, I don't know. I wanna be able to label the big stars and the medium stars, and then the little ones. And then I'm wondering, do we want, if my hot tool was like, would get hot, I was gonna do this, like the lines, but maybe that's a big dream, who knows? Like here. And then we can do bop, bop, bop. And that's B, B. That's a B. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3. And if you're worried about the Sharpie on your pumpkin, don't worry too much. You can get like a little Q-tip with acetone or like nail polish remover and wipe it off. Okay, and then just do X's on the tiny stars and see if I can get the Sharpie to just push through that. Okay, and we line that back up. B, B, M, M, perfect. So go 1, 2, 3, 4. And obviously pushing this onto a round pumpkin is, so those little dots will just be our smaller. Okay, so that's Gemini. And then just so I can keep track of what I've done thus far before I start drilling, I'm going to tape that in place. I will pick up Taurus is next, I guess. It's kind of decided that it was. Okay guys, so I did a test one and everything seems to be good. So for our big, we're using the big 1/2 inch drill bit, and we're just gonna go straight in. And this was tested because I needed to make sure that the marbles would stay and that I could get them in. So try and go straight into the pumpkin. Let the drill do the work, don't push. And I did put a trash bag down because messy. And now I can just roll it up and be done. Throw it all away. All right, so all of our holes are drilled for our stars. We can go back in and drill some more, but I want to go ahead and start placing all of our beads and things so that we kind of get an idea of where we're at before we add more. And to start that off, I want to take some just cleaning solution and wipe everything down. Some of these need to be cleaned up. So I'm gonna use just the end of my paintbrush, and this is a good size for the medium ones. Kind of just go in and push the styrofoam around. So you can see how this one you can, well maybe you can't see, but you can barely see through it because it's just where the drill went in. We're gonna go in and just kind of like, and now you can see, because we obviously want to create a situation where the light's coming through. And then we're just kind of rounding them out and just making them look a little bit cleaner. These little holes, the tiny stars, I have found that my Cricut tool actually works really well. I went to look for just a single nail that was the right size, but then I saw this sitting there and it works really well because you can put it in the hole and then spin either the tool or the pumpkin, and it really helps open up that space if there was any like residue from the pumpkin underneath that the drill left behind. All right, so let's start working on our beading situation. So I have a bunch of these little glass vase filler marbles, and I'm literally just going to press them into the holes we created, trying to make sure if there's any fluffy bits, push that in and catch it in your marble, because obviously we don't really want that to show. It's just kind of an inevitability of using a drill, and I think the drill is still by far the fastest way and most efficient way to do this. But in reality, I've never had good luck with hot glue and glass anyway. So I think the fact that this is just drilled out is specifically for this size of marble. It's a little bit snug, and you're pushing those in and they're really not going anywhere. And then you don't have to deal with glue. Unfortunately, I did end up with a kind of a bad spot there, but I'll see what I can do to maybe try and solve that. Okay, so this is where we were at when I left you, and it just wasn't striking me as being what I wanted it to be. So I sat back and I did some like searching, soul searching really, and I just stared at it, and to figure out what I wanted, we've ended up here. So I think I really want the night sky. So I made some navy blue paint with this Craft Smart. This is steel blue, and then I just mixed it with our plain black paint that we've been using all month. And then I drilled a bunch more holes. So these ones I need to open up a little bit more. I've been drilling them so there's like some space, and then I use this nail to kind of punch them out and make them open up a little bit so you can see the light through them. Or I have still been using this Cricut tool, which does the same thing. You kind of just go one by one after you drill them all, and then you can see the light through it much better. And I think the warm glow through the navy pumpkin is just what I wanted it to be. So we're gonna go ahead and paint this pumpkin. Well, we're gonna drill the holes and then we're gonna paint this pumpkin, and then we're gonna start assembling again, because I thought we were done and apparently my brain said we weren't. So again, I'm just got a really tiny drill bit this time, and I'm just kind of randomly all right, so now we're just painting the pumpkin, and I've mixed up quite a bit of this paint in this little container because I wanted to make sure that I had enough to cover this whole pumpkin, and then top coat, do one last little like quick coat on the other two, and that way they should all be about the same color. When you're mixing paint, obviously you can vary between how much you put in. Luckily we're doing this dark navy color, so it shouldn't be too varied. And also, if it is, I kind of like that because it's, again, very night sky to have like the mixes of blue. If you wanted to, you could even go through here and kind of dabble on some white or some like purple and really go for like those big galaxy vibes. Okay, so now we're here. We finished painting. I've put the marbles back in where they were, and I wanted to talk you through this one, like the step of the little holes. So I had to do this off camera because I needed to be under a vent. You really want to do it outside, but when you drill these holes, you're not going to get a fully clean hole. It kind of tears it up in the back. It's a great way to do a bunch of them quickly, but then you kind of do need to go and like open them up a little bit better. So this Cricut tool is a great option. If you don't have that, an ice pick would be a really great option. Something with a handle saves your hands a little bit. An awl, a nail does a great job. You just push it in and open the hole up. Push it in, open the hole up. And you can wiggle it around and really make sure that you're getting that light through. So you do want to do this to, if you don't want to do it to all of them, do it to a good number of them so that you're getting that opening. The other option, which is what I did, is take your hot tool. My other hot tool died, so I did go treat myself to a new one from Michaels, and it comes with this attachment, and this just goes in the hole. And it burns it open a little bit, and it goes very quickly, and you just go each drilled hole. So those are your options. Again, you could just leave it with the drill, but I highly recommend opening those holes up a little bit. You can also reach your hand in and kind of knock off the stuff from the back, because that's what's blocking the light. Right. And then as you can see, I went ahead and put our guides back on, because once I put all the holes in, it was hard to find where everything needed to go. So I used the larger holes to line everything back up. And now I'm going to go back in with our little faceted beads. And I have two sizes here. I've been kind of going back and forth between both depending on how big the drill hole is. Most of them, this little one fits perfectly, but there's a few where the hole got a little too wide for that. So I just flip this down, and that's the only medium one on that one. Okay, this one has quite a few. So we have one there. And I'm just pushing these in. They really do stay where they need to be. And it saves you some time from having to get the glue gun out. So then I went a step further, and I'll show you on this example. I felt like once we did all the little holes, the little stars in the constellation were getting left out. So I went ahead and I got some seed beads, and we ended up beading those too. So I have a bunch of these just clear small beads, glass beads, and I ended up filling all of this small stars with these little glass beads as well. And that way all the constellation is beaded, and it just makes it stand out a little bit more. And then we have one more step that really makes it shine, and that is to use a gold paint pen and line the constellations. So you can cut them if you want the light to shine through, but I just felt like the light wouldn't shine through as brightly as I was hoping it would, and that using the paint marker was a much better bet. It really does show up and kind of pop, and it really shows where your constellations are, and it's really pretty. So it was super funny as I was making this, because my husband walked by and said, oh, it's like those, you're making one of those lights like we saw in Turkey this summer. And it dawned on me that I kind of was. And when we were in Turkey over the summer, we went on a cruise through Greece and then did one day in Turkey, and they have these gourd lights that are absolutely beautiful, and a lot of them are painted white, and then they're covered in beads. They're drilled with holes and covered with beads, and they're like pendant lamps or desk lamps or whatever you want them to be, but they're stunning. And I recently, at a craft fair, there was a man selling gourds, and I really wanted to buy one when we were on this trip, and unfortunately there just was no way to get it back in our suitcase. And so I was like, well, maybe I can make one when I get home. And I didn't even think about that when I started this project. I just wanted a way for there to be stars. But somewhere in my brain, that creative idea was up there, because I do have a birdhouse gourd waiting in the other room to be turned into a lamp with this same exact process. And here I am doing it with fake gourds. But honestly, it was so funny to me, because I was like, that idea has been up there just waiting to come out, and I didn't even realize that this was basically an identical project to that. in concept at least. Obviously we're making constellations and Halloween decor and not a traditional Turkish lamp, but the process is very, very similar. And it just, I don't know, I thought it was so funny that how our brains work and how all of those creative ideas get trapped up there rattling around until they finally emerge with something like this. And I will, when I'm done with all of my Halloween stuff, eventually make my gourd. But I can just kind of use this as a guide. And we take our paint marker, and you could use a ruler if you want to make really straight lines, but I'm finding that just these short lines you can do fairly accurately. The only one I messed up was Pisces, so I apologize, Pisces. I don't know if you'll notice it when it's like on screen. I drew the line in the wrong spot, and I can't figure out. I think I added an extra star to that constellation somehow. But that's okay, because this is just going in my house. No one in my house is a Pisces, so nobody here can be directly offended. All right, now we just need to light them up. So there are multiple ways to do this as well, and I will let you decide what you want. I will say that you need a fairly bright light. The little candle lights that I was using to test, not really bright enough. These puck lights are great. In order to do that, I need to make the hole bigger because obviously it doesn't fit. But now that I have a hot tool, that's not an issue. I can easily make that hole bigger. You could also use twinkle lights that you put in here, like little fairy lights on the wire with the battery, and the battery cable can just drop right in there, and then you can wind them up all the way through all of your little holes up into the top. That works really well. You could also do the same thing with a small strand of, and I recommend using warm light, I really do. I've used a warm light puck light and a white light puck light, and the warm light just looks a lot prettier with this. But Christmas lights work really well, and you can buy a small 100 strand of Christmas lights and put like 30-ish, 33 lights in each pumpkin. Again, run them all the way up through the top and then plug them in. And I bought some Christmas lights yesterday, so I know that they're available at Target. All right, so on this pumpkin, I cut a little hole in the bottom for the cord to come out of, and then I cut a notch so that the cord could sit up in the pumpkin, and that way this will still sit flat and the cord will have a gap to come out of. So I'm gonna finish putting all of our lights in here and we'll go plug it in.